Today, you good people come to the meditation center, observe 8 precepts. It is the control of your bodily actions and speech, and practice vipassana meditation diligently. By practicing vipassana meditation continuously, you can achieve eradication of your mental defilements, you can attain nirvana, cessation of all suffering. Today we have to listen what is Kamma. The literal meaning of the word Kamma is something that is done or a deed. Kamma also means a mental state that is instrumental in doing the deed, good or bad, wholesome or unwholesome. So technically, Kamma means the mental state which arises in our mind when we do some deed. Whenever there is a deed, good or bad, there arises in our mind this mental state. That mental state organizes the other associated mental states and also engage itself to the object. So that mental state is called Chetana, volition. So what we call Kamma is not actually the deed, good or bad, but that mental state that accompanies or that arises in our mind when we do good or bad, or when we do wholesome or unwholesome deeds. And as a mental state, it arises and disappears immediately, because according to the teaching of the Buddha, whether it is a mental state or a material state, it arises and immediately it disappears. But unlike other mental states, when it disappears, it leaves some potential to give results in the mental continuum of beings. Although we cannot say or we cannot know whether this potential is stored, but when conditions are favorable for the Kamma to give results, the results are produced. So the Kamma, which has the potential to give results, gives results when the conditions are favorable for it. That is what we call Kamma. And this Kamma, as you know, can be good Kamma or bad Kamma, or can be wholesome or unwholesome. Since it is a natural law that Kamma gives results, it follows that when Kamma is good, then it will produce good results, it will produce happy results. When the Kamma is bad or unwholesome, it will produce bad results or painful results. That is what we call the law of Kamma. that there is what we call karma or volition, and this karma gives results in the future. So good people all believe in the law of karma. The understanding of the law of karma taught us self-reliance and self-responsibility, because we enjoy or we suffer as a result of what karma we did in the past. So whatever you enjoy in this life is actually the result of good karma you did in the past. And whatever you suffer here is also the results of bad karma you did in the past. So we are not to blame anybody else for our suffering or failure in this life. If you want to blame at all, we can blame our own karma. So karma is one that produces results, and since it is we who do the karma, we are the ones who cause the results to be produced. So we are the master of our own future. We can shape our future lives. In this respect, we are free and do not have to rely on any other person, on our good future, because we alone can create our future, either good or bad. When we understand that we alone are responsible for our own suffering or happiness, we know we can shape our future so that we get happiness only and not suffering. If we do not want bad results, if we do not want painful results, we just need to avoid which will give painful results. That means the knowledge of the law of karma will teach us to abstain from doing what is bad, what is painful to oneself, and what is harmful to others. So we can improve our lives here, and also we can shape our lives in the future because we understand the law of karma. Now karma gives results. Whenever there is karma, there will be results. We cannot get away from the consequence of the karma we did in the past unless we become Buddhas or Arahants. So when a person is reborn in another life, that rebirth is the result of karma he did in the past. In the immediate past life or in the lives before the past. So when a person is said to be reborn, he is reborn as a result of the karma he did in the past. According to the teaching of Theravada Buddhism, rebirth immediately follows death. There's no time gap between death in one life and rebirth in the next life. There's no time interval between death in one life and rebirth in the next life. So according to Abhidhamma, rebirth immediately follows death, but we must understand that rebirth in the next life is not the result of the death in the previous life. Rebirth in the next life is a result of karma in the past. Quite often people misunderstand this fact. They think that rebirth is produced by death. We can say that rebirth is conditioned by death also, when we mean that death consciousness disappears, so that rebirth consciousness can arise. It is called proximity condition in Patana in the book of Abhidhamma. Death is just one moment in life, the last moment. Before that last moment, the dying person's mind is occupied with some kinds of object presented to his or her mind by Kamma. And the qualities of these objects play an important role in conditioning the rebirth. So karma in the past life, immediate past life, or the lives before the past, produce rebirth in the next immediate life. Actually, disappearing of one moment and arising of another moment go on even when we are living. According to the teaching of the Buddha, we are being reborn and dying at every moment of our lives. Now I am talking, and you are hearing. When I talk words and you hear the words, and words disappear very quickly, and you are listening to the words also comes and goes very quickly. So according to the teaching, according to the instruction, you just know hearing, very clear, the sound wave disappear, hearing consciousness disappear immediately. So words disappear very quickly, and you are listening to the words also comes and goes very quickly. So at every moment, there is a new pair of mind and matter arising and then disappearing immediately. In the next moment, there is a new pair of mind and matter arising and then disappearing. It goes on and on like that even when we are living. So if you can understand that even in our lives, one moment of mind and matter follows another moment of mind and matter without any interruption or any time gap between the two, we can understand this life and the next life. When we are reborn, after death in one life, they are just one moment after death. So the arising and disappearing of mind and matter go on and on until one becomes an Arahant or a Buddha and one dies. Until that moment, this arising and disappearing of mind and matter will go on and on incessantly. To understand this nature, you watching this mind and matter very closely. And here also the rebirth is produced by Kamma. So we can do something about Kamma in this life so that we are reborn in a better existence. According to our teaching, nothing moves from this life to the next life, but as a result of something that beings did in the previous life, they are produced the results in the future. So they are connected as cause and effect. We may think of a rosary or a necklace. There are beads on them, and these beads are different from one another, and they are distinct too. But there is a string going through these beads, and so we think that it is a series of beads, but actually only the individual beads are real. In the same way, mind and matter at every moment is new, arising at every moment. But there is something like a string going through the successions of arising of mind and matter. That is relationship as cause and effect. So when an effect is produced by a certain cause, then it must have some features of the cause in it. In that way, there are no chaotic arising and disappearing, or there is no such thing as my karma will give result to you, or your karma will give results to me, because there is this line of relationship of cause and effect going through arising and disappearing of mind and matter at every moment. Now when mind and matter produced or mind and matter arise at the moment of rebirth, Buddha called rebirth, suffering. Jatipi dukkha, rebirth is suffering. That is the word that most people don't like. But according to the teaching of the Buddha, that rebirth is also suffering. To be reborn as a human beings, to be reborn as a celestial beings, or to be reborn as an animal is also suffering. So according to the Buddha's teaching, everything in the world is suffering. Here first we must understand the word suffering. In Pali it is dukkha. When we say there is suffering, we think that only pain is suffering. There is pain, physical pain or mental pain, that is suffering. That is very easy to see. But what the Buddha meant by suffering is much deeper than that. So according to the Buddha, everything in this world is suffering. Even when you are enjoying yourself, enjoying good relationship, enjoying sensual pleasures, these pleasures are themselves termed suffering by the Buddha. Why? Enjoying sensual pleasures are themselves termed suffering by the Buddha. We must understand that the criterion taught by the Buddha for something being suffering or dukkha. Now, Buddha said, whatever is impermanent is suffering. We must follow that. Whatever is impermanent is suffering. Can we find anything that is permanent in this world? Can we find anything that just arises and does not disappear? There's nothing that lasts forever. Everything must come to an end. Simply because it is a beginning. So whenever there is a beginning, there is an end. Now you just observing, hearing. There is beginning of the hearing and the end of the hearing. Beginning of the sitting and the end of the sitting. Beginning of the rising and the end of the rising. The beginning of the falling and the end of the falling. So whenever there is a beginning, there is an end. It is a law of nature. We cannot escape that. We are born as human beings. we started as human beings, we will not live forever. One day we will die because that is the end of our lives. So whenever there is a beginning, there is an end. Something that has a beginning and an end cannot be said to be permanent. It is impermanent. So Buddha said, whatever is impermanent is suffering. Whatever is impermanent is dukkha. That means it is oppressed by arising and despairing. It is oppressed by, it is bombarded by arising and despairing. It is tormented by arising and despairing. Being constantly oppressed by arising and despairing is what Buddha meant as dukkha or suffering. Not just pain, not just sorrow, not just depression and others in our mind of suffering, but whether it is pleasure or it is sorrow, everything that has a beginning and an end is according to that criterion, dukkha, suffering. Because there is a sense of being oppressed by arising and despairing. It will become more pronounced when you practice meditation. When you practice meditation, meditators try to be mindful of whatever object is at the present moment. So whatever object, you keep your mind on it, arises and disappears. It will not stay for a long time. Now you are hearing, I'm talking, and you are hearing these words one after another. They just come and go, come and go. So the instruction is very simple. When you sit, you have to know sitting. When there is arising of the abdomen, you note arising. When the falling of the abdomen, you note falling. If you note very continuously, you will see they just come and go, one after another. So when you are aware of every object that you observe, come and go, you can get the sense of being oppressed by arising and despairing. Even when you are listening to the talk, you are being bombarded by arising and disappearing. So you are not the same person now. I am not the same person now. You are not the same person now as you were 5 minutes ago. You are not the same person now as you were 10 minutes ago. So there is this rising and disappearing going on all the time. There is no gap, there is no respect between these. So we all are constantly and continuously oppressed by this arising and disappearing. That is what Buddha meant by suffering. If we understand this, we can understand that all 5 aggregates are suffering. We can understand that all psychophysical phenomena are suffering. By the matter of 5 aggregates means everything in the world. So everything in the world has a beginning and an end. So everything is suffering. When we try to understand the teaching of the Buddha, especially the first noble truth, we must understand the suffering on this level, not just on the popular level. Now, when explaining the first noble truth, Buddha said, Jatipi dukkha, jarapi dukkha, vyadipi dukkha, maranampi dukkha, and so on. That means birth is suffering, aging is suffering, disease is suffering, death is suffering, and so on. But they are not difficult to understand. Without meditation, we can understand that birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering. We can understand that they all are suffering. But at last, Buddha said, Pinchu pada nekanda dukkha. In brief, all 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. That means everything in the world is suffering. That is what many people cannot accept. Many people do not understand what Buddha really meant. When Buddha said, everything in the world is suffering, or all 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering, he had in mind that the definition of suffering or dukkha, that is, being constantly oppressed by arising and disappearing. There is not a single physical or mental phenomena that can escape this bombardment by arising and disappearing. That is why everything in the world is said to be suffering. So when we try to understand the teaching of suffering, we try to understand in this way. If we do not understand on this level, we may just not understand the Buddha's teaching, or we may accuse him of being a pessimist. But Buddha was not a pessimist, nor was he an optimist. Buddha was a realist. Buddha taught us what was real. He did not cover something up just to console us. When Buddha found out that the world was suffering, he just said that the world was suffering. But the good thing is that Buddha did not stop there. Buddha said that there was a cause for this suffering. And best of all, Buddha said that there was a way which can lead to the cessation of suffering. Buddha said that there was a path to get out of this suffering. Just as a clever physician would point out that you have a disease and there is a cause for this disease, and that this disease could be cured, and this is the medicine to take. So Buddha said, you all beings are suffering, and there is a cause for suffering. The cause of suffering is craving, and there is a cessation of this suffering. Cessation of suffering is Nibbana. That cessation of all suffering, or that Nibbana, can be achieved through the practice of middle way or Noble Eightfold Path, right understanding, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. By developing this Noble Eightfold Path, you can reach the cessation of suffering, you can reach Nibbana. So Buddha did not teach us just suffering, but he taught us how to get rid of suffering also. If we follow the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, we will also be able to end this suffering. So it is up to us whether we want to get out of this suffering or not. And if we really want to get out of this suffering, we need to follow the fourth noble truth, which is the way that leads to the cessation of suffering. You good people want to get out of this suffering, and then you try to practice meditation. That is Sila, Samadhi, Panya, morality, concentration and wisdom. First you try to observe 5 precepts or 8 precepts. Not killing, not stealing, not sexual misconduct, not telling lies, no intoxicant, etc. After fulfilling your moral precepts, you try to develop your concentration. Now in Vipassana meditation, continuously you observe your momentary concentration getting strengthened, and then you can achieve the true knowledge. You come to this center and you practice this Four Noble Truth. That is morality, concentration and wisdom, that will lead to the cessation of suffering. So when we study the Buddha teaching, or when we try to understand the Buddha teaching, we do not try just to understand them. We need to practice them also. So the teaching of the Buddha are like medicine. The medicine will be effective only if we take it. We may have a bottle of medicine at home, but if we do not take them, we will not get cured. We will not get cured of the disease we want to cure it. So the effectiveness of medicine lies in being taken. So if we do not take them, we will not get the results of that medicine. In the same way, Buddha teachings are good to understand, but that is not enough. We have to put these teachings into practice. And we have to follow the teaching so that we are able to get rid of suffering or get rid of all our mental defilements. That is why in the teaching of the Buddha, practice is very important. Now you good people come to weekend retreat and practice diligently. Practice is really important to improve our Kamma. Kamma. So practice is very important. Only through practice we can achieve what was achieved by the Buddhas and the Arhants. Now today we have tried to understand what Kamma is, and also rebut that is the results of Kamma. And also we have tried to understand that the results of karma, however good it may be, is actually suffering. And the only way to get out of suffering is to practice, to develop morality, concentration and wisdom, to practice Satipatthana meditation or Vipassana meditation. This practice is very simple. When you walk, you're not walking. When you really concentrate on that walking, you can discover the mind and matter very clearly. And these mind and matter are arising and disappearing. When sitting, you note just rising, falling, sitting, touching. When thinking and planning arise, notice thinking, planning, etc. Do not expect for anything. And when the sensation arises, notice sensation. Try to concentrate the kinds of pleasant or unpleasant sensation very continuously, so that sensations are separated from the body. Sensation is sensation, feeling is feeling, body is body. They are separated. You can see clearly these feelings are appearing and disappearing. Every seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, every phenomena occurring at the sixth sense door have to be noted. So you practice very diligently in this retreat, and by practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six sense doors, by noting rising, falling, sitting, touching, walking, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, continuously and meticulously. May all yogis realize the real peace. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. So